Welcome back to the use and abuse of Laura Endicott. This is scene 2 of chapter 4, Apparition. This figure sat upright in its chair. I peered into the shadows. The clock at the foot of the spiral staircase had just gone 3 in the morning. I had been awakened by what I took to be a bird flying into my bedroom window. Upon investigation, I could discern nothing. I then cast round the house, just to be sure there was nothing amiss, and came upon the corridor off which the sick room lay. This was at some distance from my own suite, but its door had not been repaired in the course of a week or so. Thus I gained silent entree and sidled over to the equally mute figure. Its head had been wrapped in some thick linen, and as I dropped it off I felt my knees give way. But upon my knees I looked back up and beheld the wizened face of the Lady Montfort. There was no sign of violence upon her features, but she had clearly departed this miserable existence which most of her remaining human peers yet endured. That I did not count myself one of this majority was perhaps the greatest blessing in my own brief life thus far. There was not a doubt in my mind who had effected this departure. Mother was suffocated by younger daughter, the former likely already asleep in her chair, and now I realized with a bit of a start the real reason why Olivia had stove in the door lock with her boot. I shook my head at it. The girl had masked over, with mere rage, the deeper means of murder. There was nothing for me to do but return to bed. I would awake hours later to the news that the mistress of Arlemont had passed in her sleep. 2 down, then, and again how many to go? The lady's maid might well be terminated, though in simply a legal sense, as her position could be seen as moribund. That, too, was a piece of ingenuity on the part of Olivia, but no. As a shiver gripped my cooling body, I realized that contractual dismissal would not be Violette's fate. Olivia was, shall we say, not a forgiving sort. The loss of employment would not be a suitable retribution for whatever the servant had dispensed in the younger daughter's direction, even if it had been mere verbal insult, and I did not in fact know anything about that particular dynamic. And so I made a prediction. What I absolutely could not predict was the manner in which it actually occurred. "Good morning." Sarah was chipper, giving me a cheery smile and even a kiss on the temple as she sat down for breakfast. We had made a routine of eating together whenever the family did not demand her presence at table, which was in fact few evenings, as the Montforts socialized lightly. I had, simply in order to at least push back against Olivia's torrid testimonials, discreetly invited Sir Hugh into my bed, that is, not his own. This more squarely placed the risk upon him, though now with his wife dead there would be far less stigma, if anything were to be eventually exposed. That he had not immediately accepted said invitation spoke of some sense of honor, to use that term again, on his part, or at the very least a sense of decorum. But it was equally clear that he had not, at least for some consecutive evenings, prevailed upon his elder daughter for anything untoward. Hence her presentation of self this morning bore all the hallmarks of excellent rest. "I am heartened by your temper, Sarah. I, too, am warmed by it. Laura, do you ever mourn for a previous self?" This was an auspicious beginning to a day's dialogue, at least in one sense. I chose to ignore the less luminous possibilities and duly replied, after cracking my boiled egg and spreading jam upon my bread. The housemaid had been assiduously cleaning the drapes on the ground-floor rooms, and she had not at all finished the breakfast-room. "We light among the litter of domesticity. Let me respond to your perceptive query by speaking not of the past, but rather of things to be. This, for example, is not a future in which I see myself." "You do not wish to marry Mr. Rossiter." "I didn't say that. No, I do wish to. I shall do so. I just do not desire what I am told to desire. Perhaps having no mother for the past 7 years has unburdened me of such a proclivity for spousal duties. I wish to be a lover, but not as much a wife. I wish to be married, but not to be a spouse. I wish to be a mentor, but not a mother. Not really." "Oh, and I thought I would be alone in such musings, in such desires. Yet I doubt my capacity for either love or marriage. Then again, as Livy has told me, who on earth would marry us?" "Finally, the proper question for the young whore of Babylon. I see that such company attracts to itself both the young and yet younger, sharing their scarlet scourge of all things decent and delicate." Sarah had choked in her effort to swallow her tea, and the liquid had spat out upon her empty plate and napkin. I had dropped my little egg fork, and its clatter upon the china shook me from my stupor. Violette had summarily descended upon us. and out of the corner of my eye I had thought it to be rather Martha, attending to the curtains and their accessories. "I shall meet you in the schoolroom, miss." Sarah made to get up, but Violette had moved to accost her. Sarah backed away and around as I now stood up. "May I remind you of the difference in status between us? You are nothing but your employer's street-side desire. Yes, you may be so pretty, but your character is but prettified. I shall not submit to any authority you imagine you have in this house. I answer to milady alone." I had thought to note that her hostess was now departed from the living, but then I caught myself. Violette clearly was unaware of this event, as indeed was Sarah. It was likely, at least for the morning hours, that I, and presumably Olivia, were the only ones in the know. Violette stood there glaring at me. She was stocky and solidly built, at least 15 years my senior and no doubt much stronger. I did not drop my eyes, however, and moved round the table to confront her. Surely she would not dare to strike me, as Sir Hugh would instantly dismiss her from his service. In this brief interim Sarah had moved herself around the lady's maid, but then lingered there. Violette turned upon her. "And as for you, yes, do go up to the schoolroom. After I have shown this loose girl the front steps, I shall come up and deal with you. And believe me, Miss Sarah, you shall not sit down for the remainder of this week at the least." I almost found myself rolling my eyes to this. There was no possible way I would allow such a thing to occur. But I was surprised to observe that Sarah's face had turned white with fear. She very clearly not only had suffered some past indignity courtesy Violette, but was in some serious doubt whether or not it would recur. "There is no way in this world or any other that the girl will be harmed by you or any other. Tell me that again when your despised face is gazing up at me from the bottom of the steps." With this invitation she flung herself at me. I would have had little chance of escaping promised ejection if I had not been wearing a school kit not unlike that of my two pupils. The shorter hem allowed me to kick into the maid's right knee, keeling her over to one side. I then twisted myself free of her grip, and in so doing turned her right round, facing away from the windows. Then I shrieked. The curtain rod had buried itself straight through one of Violette's eyes, and had emerged through its opposing ear. The maid fell over in a sordid heap, blood oozing out various apertures, both those natural and those newly created. I sank to my knees in a sudden stupor, but I did not apparently faint, for here was Sarah lifting me clear of the detritus, and then rushing over to close and bolt the door. The fact that the windows were of course clear of curtains gave her a look of chagrin, but that was its sole source. "I did not think myself capable of such an act," Sarah murmured. She had forsworn my attempt to embrace her, but did so with a kindness and not a disavowal. "I hope this will mend the fence with my sister. She will now see me as someone worthy of her respect and her trust." "Sarah, my poor darling girl, do we live in the Casa Nostra?" The girl chuckled at the reference, but then raised her brows at me and shrugged. "This is our lot. We are, after all, Lot's daughters." "Speaking of the legend, I should tell you that your mother is herself dead. Yes, I am so sorry, dearest Sarah. I discovered her early this morning, upon being awakened by some noise or other." "It is nothing to me, nor have I had any part in it," she replied evenly. Her tone bore the impress of truth, insofar as I knew what truth was by now. Then she suddenly brightened up once again. "This leaves us clear, then." "No, not so. I cannot have you continue to replace me, as you have so gallantly accomplished." "Miss Sarah, though I have invited your father to come to my rooms, he has not yet afforded himself the pleasure, shall we say." "Humph! Well, he has not accosted me now for some few nights. Not that I should appear the victim. No, Laura, just no to that. I am not a victim. My sister is the victim of both my mother's animosity and her maid's sadism, not to mention the barbarous cruelty of your predecessor." "I almost fainted long before you skewered the second on your list, just by witnessing the fear upon your face. Please do not eschew your rights as a victim, for surely you have also been one in this house." Sarah flushed up now, and then shook her pretty head. She was desirable, and that in every way, though I hated to think of how she had become so. It was unnatural, and I say that as a student of Darwin. Far better that she and I had become lovers, however scandalous this might be. And indeed, now that we stood there together, the drugget slowly soaking up with blood, and the curtain rod still a-quiver with the corpse's own final spasms, I felt a common bond arise in my breast. Sarah reminded me of a number of my school chums, a few of which had found their merry way into one another's arms, as well as my own after-school hours over the years. Thinking of my closest friend at college, and then thinking of Philip, I began to pine for these earlier efforts at love, halting and juvenile as they must seem to any veteran. And for goodness sakes, Sarah might well be herself more a veteran than I, though presumably having had thus far only one such interlocutor. I dare say I trust you, Laura, and even love you after a fashion. When I asked you to be with my father in my stead, you bore it up. You took it upon yourself as some sacred mission, and I will never forget that. So, this is what I need now. Still standing closer together, ignoring the minor carnage, and also how in the world we were going to explain it away, Sarah revealed a sunnier future than had her younger sister, one which sought happiness, contentment, and also a long-term viability. On Olivia's part, her plan seemed akin to some Teutonic legerdemain, an endless bout of vengeance slayings and divine quarrels, and for that matter, the trading of beds to boot. I contemplated the one thing that was thus left to accomplish, and for the first time had some dark foreboding regarding yet another possible thing of similar timbre and tenor. But no, the girls would accept Philip as their new father, however close in age all four of us would indeed be. And after all, neither of them would truly need either of us, as parent or otherwise. This was their estate, and if we were to live here over a longer period, we would remain their guests. No, it could never work. Sarah was daydreaming. But in respect of our newly forged chain, I put all of this to her. No, Laura, I should think to gift you this estate. Do you think either Livy or I would desire to remain in this house, given all that has befallen us within its bounds? No. The income from father's investments shall be ours, and it shall be enough. The property shall be yours and the gallant Mr. Rossiter's, and thence you shall have the responsibility for its upkeep. You truly do have this worked out. Even so, how can I accept such munificence? I told you, Miss Laura, that I would do anything for you. I do not break my vows. Neither does my sister, in spite of appearances. Oh, I think I am well aware of your sister's druthers, Miss Sarah. Good God, yes, I am. And speaking of which, I admitted that we could use her wit right about now, given our worldly situation. It was well and fine to speak of the future rid of villains, and however villainously so, that would be a matter for our own consciences to deal with. That, if mine could be recovered, and Olivia could procure one in the first place. A sharp rapping at the door compelled heeding. That will almost assuredly be Martha, opined Sarah. I shall let her in. Will you? I wonder if that is truly a good... Ah! Oh, my God! My God! The housemaid took one look at the scene and rushed off frantically, and with nothing other than conniption underfoot. Sarah had made the correct decision once again. I should not have doubted her, even upon such a trivial account, for after all, she was Olivia's sister. She will tell father that she is leaving his employ. Then Olivia and I can interview some new staff, with you as our benchmark and accreditrix. Technically correct, I silently praised her, giving her a wink, but very awkward and outlandishly archaic. What about Hargreaves and the French chef? The first will follow father wherever he goes, and the second will return whence she came. Oh, that is amusing. Your beau is in Paris, of course. Indeed, and not an hour goes by that I do not wish upon his return. But, Sarah, tell me this, and in all seriousness, would your sister not come after Philip? Good Lord, no. Oh, my poor Laura, you have evidently seen only the darker aspect of my beloved sister's character. No, she is noble. I am unworthy of her. She took up my cause with valor and honor both. She took on all the risk to body and spirit alike, whilst I was essentially enjoying myself. I winced again, but just there I had to confront the hypocrisy of any moralizing upon my part, however latent. So you are placing the heroine's mantle upon your sister's shoulders? And without demur, Laura, yes. Violette caned me the once. It was miserable, and it took days and days to fully recover, but in no other way have I been truly molested. Even your predecessor favored me. Her discipline of me was what any gentle school would have itself known. Now, that said, I resented it all the same. Yet it was not cruel, not savage, not torture. And then there I was, cradled in my own father's arms, filled with desire and pleasure the both, feeling safe and secure, and loved, yes, loved, Laura. If I do not shy away from the truth of it, why then should you? Because it is a truth which is not within the truth. That surely is more in Livy's line, but I shall try. Tell me this, then. Is it only such a truth that has merit? Only that truth which is within the truth? And so, of what does that higher truth contain? To what does it pertain? And who of us can know its import, when we live a life without its ambit, at a tangent from its truer arc? I simply stood and stared at her. She was manifestly sincere, not sardonic and guttural as was her sister. She bore an authenticity of inquiry for its own sake, whereas Olivia was always looking for the moment, the means, and not the meaning. This is a fair critique, Sarah. I applaud you. Nonetheless, I feel compelled to stick to my guns, as it were. I maintain you are a victim, but at the same time I do not want you to wear that upon your heart's sleeve. Better said, then, you have been victimized. You are not, in your being, a victim. Perhaps this is what you meant all along? Yes. I did not have the better language in which to express it, but yes, dear teacher, this is just it. I do not define myself as a victim, but I do recognize I have been, shall we say, taken advantage of upon occasion. She smiled amicably over at me. She, unlike her younger sister, was but 1 inch shorter than I. I had to let it go. It might well be that Sarah was made of stronger ethical stuff than I thus far had been construing, and if so, this would be her way of providing for herself a rationale, and doing so without simply rationalizing away her abuse. But none of this was going to address our current logistical impasse. Between the two of us, we could possibly remove the body, cast it over the ridge cliff with a view to mimicking the previous theater, though it would have to be at a fair distance from the other body, otherwise the entire thing would begin to look self-satirical, and that at best. One could always clean a curtain rod, and speaking of which, I dare say the three of us are now going to have to put ourselves in thrall to the estate, as if we were the new servant staff. To this Sarah chuckled. I can't wait to sport a maid's frolicking flock. Damn me, but such a lark makes me long to bed again my own... Sarah! Oh, dear. Pardon me, my poor thing. Oh, you little scamp, you are teasing me. I do declare, if you had never felt the lash, I should be tempted to give you some small taste thereof. Now you are teasing me, but that is fair play. So, after we dump the body, we shall have to burn the rug, and some of these furniture throws, and indeed this entire curtain panel, Kindling, my beloved sister, kindling. Both Sarah and I gasped, in spite of ourselves, for Olivia had just materialized in the doorway, cocking her still adorable head at the scene within. A single fire serves our dual purpose. Aha! Yes, burn the body with the sundry items which shall increase the heat output, consuming all. Precisely, dearest sister of mine, and please tell me that our paragon of purity and parity the both did not do this dirty deed. I clamped my mouth shut to this, but Sarah came to my rescue this time. Livy, really, of course not. But I am proud, so proud, to present my trophy to you. Please, sister, forgive me. Come back to me. I need you, and always shall. This was heartfelt, and I could not, in spite of my best efforts, ignore the truer stakes in all of this, at least from the sister's perspective. This was not mere vengeance after all, but a joint mission to recover a sibling love, which had itself been tortured and discarded along the way to their respective hells. I am not only yours, dearest beloved sister, but also at your fullest service. Let us reunite. Yes, I am shaken to my fibre to know of your lament, for what we truly are. Let us never again be so estranged. I had no idea Olivia was at all capable of anything approaching the sentimental, let alone the loving. Now the two of them were locked in a mutual embrace which seemed to transform them into a kind of breathing sculpture. But not to stand on sentiment alone, I began to clean up. I had to close my eyes when pulling forth the curtain rod, but indeed it exempted its novel hostess easily enough. I made a serious vow to forget the sound it made in so doing, and then got on with the rest of it. Presently there were 3 of us working away, and then, by the gods, 4. Nothing need be said, Miss Endicott. I was aware from the moment you met the rest of our staff of the enmity Violette held against you. There is nothing afoul here, Hargreaves murmured to me. Now he turned to Olivia. Forgive me, young mistress, but I overheard your plan. I know of the precise place in which such a fire can be lit unseen. Good on you, Hargreaves. Ladies, the manager has that title for a reason. Indeed, I do presume upon the fact that I have worked here for over 50 years. This was evidently not news to the sisters, but to me it certainly was. It meant that he had served in the staff of Sir Hugh's father, at the very least, going back to essentially the end of the Napoleonic Wars. I did not intend to kill this woman. She attacked rather viciously, her goal to throw me out, since I imagine she must have thought I had usurped Lady Montford's intimate role with Sir Hugh, which I also would find unthinkable. I noted Sarah had frozen up for a moment when I started speaking, but then had realized that this was by far the easier route, given that Hargreaves would himself find it unthinkable that one of the children had performed this grotesque deed. I continued in that vein. She leaped forward as I had picked up the curtain rod to defend myself, and thusly. It is a horrible thing, Miss Endicott, but you need not trouble yourself in any fashion heretofore. Violette was an ill-tempered Gallic woman whose loyalty to her mistress was inviolate. In her ardor to please her, she mistreated both the lady's daughters, and I speak of this only the once, dear girls, in your hearing, so that you yourselves can be assured that I upbraided the lady's maid on both occasions that she punished each of you. Sarah now looked astonished, but her sister waited upon her, no doubt due to Olivia being unimpressed by the manager's earlier remonstrations of someone who would be, for her, lower than any animal. I am grateful, we are both grateful to you, Hargreaves, and I do hope that there should be no more issues now that she is gone and Miss Endicott represents the very best and gentlest of mentors. That was clever, and I then noted just a flicker of approval emanating from Olivia, who was now helping to roll the maid's body into a combination of curtains throws and the blood-drenched rug itself. Sarah had taken up my lead and underscored how it was simply impossible, indeed, even if I had done the deed in the first place, that I should be culpable for deliberate murder. It was a defense that might even stand up in court should there have to be had to be such proceedings, but just so, and still yet known to only Olivia and myself, all three deaths, which in reality were murders of the most morbid and outre flavor, respectively, now looked like a suicide, a natural death, and an accident in the midst of illegal self-defense. As we completed the task before us, I took up one end of the rude roll with Hargreaves at the other. Martha was nowhere to be seen, and the chef would always be in the kitchens or cellar preparing the round of daily meals. Sir Hugh was, unbeknownst to me at the time, up in town. It was a lengthy and funereal-style march to the place where the manager knew all was secure. The girls had departed to fetch lamp oil and a torch. By the time they caught up with us, I felt a change in my own demeanor. It had been too easy to, in fact, get away with murder, and in all three cases. But what struck me was not any sense that the law had itself been cleverly avoided, but rather just how simplified any future could be within the shadows of such cleverness. No one else could stand in the way of one's utmost desires, and that included, if necessary, the master of the house himself. Thank you for listening.